The 1962 Sino-Indian War, a forgotten mountain conflict. In the autumn of 1962, the world's highest mountains became the stage of a sudden and shocking war. China and India, two of Asia's oldest civilizations, clashed in a conflict that lasted just 1 month, yet left behind a legacy that still shapes relations between them today. This was not a long war. There were no grand naval battles or large-scale tank assaults. Instead, it was a brutal struggle for survival fought on frozen peaks more than 4,000 meters above sea level, where the air is thin, the terrain unforgiving, and every step can mean life or death. The roots of the conflict to understand 1962, we must go back decades earlier. When India gained independence in 1947, its new leaders inherited borders drawn by the British Empire. One of those borders, the McMahon Line, had been unilaterally mapped by British officials in 1914, cutting through the Himalayas without China's consent. China, recovering from internal turmoil and later the founding of the People's Republic in 1949, never accepted this boundary. For centuries, the people of Tibet and the regions south of the Himalayas had traded, moved, and mingled freely. But now the mountains had been turned into a political wall. Both nations believed they were defending what was rightfully theirs. India's Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, proud of the country's newfound independence, promoted a policy known as forward post, sending troops to occupy advanced positions along the contested border. To Beijing, this appeared as direct provocation. The tipping point by the late 1950s, tensions reached a breaking point. India had granted asylum to the Dalai Lama, spiritual leader of Tibet, after his failed uprising against Chinese rule. This single event deeply angered Beijing. From that moment, mistrust between the two neighbors deepened rapidly. Minor skirmishes began to occur, each side accusing the other of encroachment. Then, in October 1962, the spark ignited. Chinese border troops, acting under Central Command, launched a counterattack against Indian forward posts in both the western sector of Aksai Chin and the eastern sector of what is today Arunachal Pradesh. The war had begun. A war on the roof of the world. The conditions were unimaginable. Blizzards, sub-zero temperatures, and cliffs that reached into the clouds. Yet, despite these extremes, China's People's Liberation Army moved with remarkable efficiency. Its soldiers carried supplies on their backs, crossed mountain passes at night, and attacked with coordinated precision. India's army, by contrast, was poorly prepared. Many soldiers wore only light uniforms. Their weapons, mostly World War I-era Lee Enfield rifles, were no match for the modern Type 56 assault rifles used by Chinese troops. Within just weeks, Indian defensive lines crumbled. Chinese forces advanced rapidly toward the plains of Assam in the east. The Indian government in New Delhi was thrown into panic. Discussions were held about relocating the capital. It seemed that the entire northeastern frontier might collapse. And then, almost as suddenly as the war began, it stopped. The ceasefire and its shock on. November 21st, 1962, China announced a unilateral ceasefire. Chinese troops withdrew 20 kilometers behind the line of actual control. There was no surrender ceremony, no negotiation, only silence in the frozen air. For India, the psychological impact was immense. The government, which had promised victory and national pride, now faced humiliation. Prime Minister Nehru, once regarded as the voice of Asian unity, struggled to explain the defeat. He blamed military commanders. The generals blamed political interference. But beneath the blame lay a deeper truth. India had underestimated the complexity of high-altitude warfare and overestimated its own readiness. The aftermath and the blame game. When the guns fell silent, another kind of battle began, the battle of narratives. In New Delhi, debates erupted in parliament. Some questioned why India had entered a war it was unprepared to fight. Others accused Nehru of arrogance, of ignoring warnings that the army lacked the equipment to face China's forces. China, for its part, claimed that it had acted purely in defense. Its withdrawal, Beijing said, was a gesture of restraint, to show the world that it sought stability, not conquest. But on the international stage, India played the role of the aggrieved victim. It won sympathy from many Western countries, and soon, help began to arrive. A world responds. The United States and the United Kingdom viewed India's defeat as a strategic opening. They feared that Asia might tilt further toward communism. So they moved quickly to strengthen India's military. By early 1963, India had announced a sweeping defense modernization plan. It aimed to double the size of its armed forces, expand air bases, and upgrade its outdated weapons. But there was a problem: money and technology. India's economy in the early 1960s was fragile. Its GDP barely matched that of China, and its industrial base was weak. So New Delhi turned outward, appealing to the West for support. It even shared confidential defense plans with Britain and America in exchange for aid. In return, the two nations supplied low-cost weapons, training, and technical advisors. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union also saw an opportunity. Although its relationship with China was cooling, Moscow extended military and financial assistance to India worth more than $1 billion by 1964. India's non-aligned image was gone. In trying to rebuild, it had aligned with both sides, East and West, out of necessity, propaganda and reality. In the years that followed, India attempted to rewrite the story. Official reports claimed that Chinese casualties were higher, that the withdrawal proved China's weakness. Yet historical evidence paints a different picture. Chinese losses were minimal, while thousands of Indian soldiers were captured or killed. Still, India's diplomatic skill turned defeat into opportunity. By portraying itself as a nation wronged by aggression, it gained international sympathy and time to rebuild. For China, the outcome was clear. The operation achieved its objectives: to secure the frontier, to demonstrate resolve, and to show that provocation would be met with firm response. By halting its advance voluntarily, China signaled that it sought no further territorial gain. Enduring lessons. More than 60 years later, the shadow of 1962 still lingers. The McMahon line remains disputed. It is not just a line on a map, but a line of pride and identity for both nations. From time to time, new border standoffs occur in the same rugged mountains. Each side builds roads, stations troops, and prepares for contingencies. Yet beneath the tension lies a quiet lesson, that even among ancient civilizations, pride and misunderstanding can ignite conflict, and restraint can be the truest show of strength. The 1962 war was brief, but its echoes endure. It reminds us that history is never truly past. It lives in the mountains, in the memories of soldiers, and in the cautious diplomacy of today. Call to action. If you found this story meaningful, remember, history shapes our present more than we realize. To explore more untold events that changed our world, subscribe to this channel, like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps bring forgotten history back to light.